But I'm definitely learning a lot today, and inshallah, all of us. This program, it's, as you all know, is being presented across or held across all our Jamaats, right? Celebrating our ancestry, our Khoja ancestry. It's truly phenomenal. So Muntazi does remind me that people are getting hungry, okay? So I'm very much aware. So inshallah, we will try to accommodate this particular segment of the program very quickly. But it's an important one. So when you see the panelists that are coming forward, there'll be 5 of them. And as I was thinking about the panelists, I paid a lot of attention to their background, their journeys. I wanted to make sure that they are representative of what I call our Khoja community. And they really are. Some of them you're going to find have been massive, massive supporters of the community, volunteered, not only themselves, their families have been part of our community. You will also see one where we think about our Khojas and we always sort of align them to their journey to East Africa and then here. But I said, you know, that's not really a true representation. How about also picking one who never actually came to East Africa, but came actually from India to here? And what is his perspective of our community? So I was very selective in that regard. So with that, I will go ahead and introduce our panelists, and then I will ask them all to come forward as I introduce them, right? So the first one is none other than Brother Onali Khalfan. He needs no introduction. He was the very first president of our community. He knows how much I love him. I literally worship this man for what he represents. He's not only about this dunya, he's about the hereafter. And as you heard Hassan al-Walji there say, we owe a lot to those forefathers of ours who were in search of the truth and they found the truth. And this man is a representation of that. So he actually, his background is very interesting. His grandparents came from Gujarat and they came to Africa in the 1800s. They made that journey on the boat. They made that journey. And they actually came, his grandfather actually came to build a railway system in Mombasa as part of during the British colonial times. So it was easy for people within the colonies to move around. So he actually came for that purpose. Marhum Muhammad Abdul Rasul Khalfan, who's his grandfather, he came to Mombasa, and then his father, Marhum Hussein Abdul Rasul Khalfan, he was actually born in Mombasa, and then in the late 1800s, he was an inventor, by the way, by profession. He was a soap technician, and that's where he started building an enterprise for the Khalfan family. Marhum Muhammad Hassan moved to Zanzibar, then to Madagascar. And that's when where Uncle Oni was born. So did you know that he studied French and Malagasy, which is the local language in Madagascar, and he speaks both. And from there, he went to Mombasa Primary School, and then from there he went to Zanzibar. He completed his studies at my alma mater in Dar es Salaam, St. Joseph. So those who remember St. Joseph's in Dar es Salaam, one of the best schools in Dar es Salaam, that's where he went. When he completed his studies, he went on to work for Public Work Departure, PWD, in the 1960s. At that time, his salary, and he remembers it, was 240 shillings a month. But just the rent at that time in Dar es Salaam was 170 shillings a month. So there's no way you can make a living off of that. So what does he decide to do? He decides to get into the sign business. And he starts making signs for the public transportation works, the bus, the railways. And that's what he started doing. So he's learned his trade back then out of necessity. In 1960, and he did this for about 15 years. In 1969, he came to New York. He did return back for a short period of time, but then this is where he decided to make his living, in New York. So with that, with a sign profession behind him, that's what he started building his business. But he was not only focused in terms of just livelihood. His concern was also about the community. And that's the part of our heritage that should never be lost to us. And I hope our youngsters who are listening, they should learn from him. That despite the hardships of coming and settling in a new country, you're coming with your family. Community was not lost to him. And he basically, the basement of his house, he called it Bibi Sakina, and the rest is history. So that's Uncle Oni. The next on our panel is none other than Uncle Ghulam Dinani. To me, when I think about a Khoja, he is a manifestation, is a representation of what a Khoja man is. I don't know if all of you have ever seen him speak in Gujarati when he's giving a speech. He's one of the few that I've witnessed, and he's as authentic as they come. His grandfather, they actually called him Lada Patel because he was from a wealthy caste in Gujarat. He didn't have any children. He was married but didn't have any children. So a soothsayer tells him that in order for you to get children, you're going to have to marry again. And this is a true story, right? You're going to have to marry again. But then in the process, you will also lose all your wealth. And guess what he decides to do? He says, okay, I will marry again. And he does. And he goes on to lose all of his wealth in the process, but he also has children. Because children was meant so much to him. And it should be, it's netma. So after losing all of his wealth, Ghulam Uncle's father, Marhum Fazal Lada Dinani, was born. He was born in the 1920s. And during that time, you must have seen in the video, there was a man called Alidina, Marhum Alidina Visram, and he's smiley. But he was arranging for people to go from Gujarat to East Africa. And you saw him, he was on the video. And therefore, his father decides to make that journey. So Marhum Fazal Dinani, right, he lands up in Uganda, in Fort Portal. The contract is signed, 3 meals a day, accommodation, and 2 pairs of clothing. And whatever he earned goes back to India, to his family. Sacrifice. We live for others. This is that representation. That's our Khoja trait. We go anywhere with meager means. Our focus is family first and our community. That is something that's inside of us. He represented that. Then what he does, so he's there, his contract is over within 1 year. He hears a lot about Songea. But first, he decides to take a boat, to a place called Mingoyo. And from there, he makes a journey to Songea. That journey was filled with danger. It took them a couple of days to make it to Songea. Guess what they would do at nighttime in that road? They would actually climb on top of trees and sleep on trees because of the wild animals on the road. And that also reminds me of my grandfather, because in the town between Ifakara and Mahenge, we come from Ifakara, it was that same story. And I remember 6 a.m. one day, making my journey to Dar es Salaam for school. My dad is in a Land Rover, and I see a pride of lion crossing the road. And my father says, Hasnain, look at this. And I said, yes, Dad, I'm watching this. And he said, Hasnain, your grandfather would make this journey from Ifakara to Mahenge so he can take a bus to Dar es Salaam so he can go and cook for the Mu'mineen during the months of Muharram and Ramadan. This is the sacrifices people made, our forefathers. That's what his father did. So he would climb on a tree to sleep at night. Okay, so he gets to Songea. Along the way, he meets a person called Khudbaksh. Random person. He takes a liking to him. And he gives him a shop. And from there, the rest is history, because his father goes on to build that shop into one of the most successful ones, and he goes on to become one of the most wealthiest of people in the south of Tanzania. And then he brings his family over, of course, in the process, and he establishes our Khoja Jamaat in Songea. That's Ghulam Uncle's dad. And then Ghulam Uncle, of course, was born. The family moved to Lindi. That's where he was born. In 1969, they moved to Dar es Salaam. And then in 1981, Ghulam Uncle made his journey to New York. Arif Jaxi, I've already introduced him. So inshallah, he will also be one of the panelists. And then number 4, Inayat Habib. Inayat Habib, his full name is Inayat Akbar Kasmali Habib Hashim Chattu. Uncle Inayat's great-grandfather migrated to Africa in the late 1800s and settled in various parts of East Africa coastal area. His grandfather Kasmali was born in Zanzibar in 1901 and shuttled between Zanzibar and the island of Pemba. His father, our beloved Marhum Akal Akbar, was born in 1929 and grew up in Pemba before settling in Zanzibar, when he got married in 1950. Uncle Inayat's mom was also born in Zanzibar and comes from the Hashim Hirji family. When our Bagamoyo Mosque was built, and I mentioned Arif's family involved, his mother's grandfather, Uncle Inayat's mother's grandfather, was at the opening ceremony where he collapsed and died shortly thereafter. He is buried in the mosque compound. So the next time you visit Bagamoyo, and I know a lot of us do, please make sure you remember him, because he's buried in that compound. Uncle Inayat was born in Zanzibar, where he did his primary education. After the Zanzibar Revolution of 1964, life on the island was not good for the Asians, and this is when Uncle Akbar decided to leave Dar es Salaam, for Dar es Salaam. Our women at that time, as you all know, were in grave danger in Zanzibar due to forced marriages being imposed by the government. And so his sisters, because women could not just be found out like that. They actually made a perilous journey on a boat to get to Dar es Salaam. And it was not safe at that time. Uncle Akbar, and they were in Dar es Salaam, Uncle Akbar then decided to move to the USA in the early 80s after the crackdown in Tanzania. Uncle Akbar, for those who remembered him, was so vested in our community where he taught Quran to our youngsters for many years and served as a trustee as well. And this love to serve was passed on to Uncle Inayat, who himself served in the capacity of treasurer. He actually was one of my mentors when I became secretary of the Jamaat in 1997. And he served as a treasurer for 4 terms. Uncle Inayat has been to India for higher education in 1972, where he studied veterinary science. He got married in 1979 in Dar es Salaam and makes his home in New York, of course, with his 3 daughters, Zainab, Zahira, and Shamim. He says it was not easy to settle here. He moved to Long Island from Queens in 1990. And of course, who forgets the commute, right? From Long Island to Queens every day for our mosque. Okay. And lastly, he needs no introduction, our Mukhi Sahib, Firoz Muqaddam. How can an event be held without Firdaus? Firdaus, his grandparents are from Mahua, Gujarat, which is next to Bhavnagar. I wonder if Firoz Mukhi was far away from you. In early 1900s, they moved to Mumbai, in Dongri. There's an area in Mumbai called Dongri. That's where they went. Firdaus's father, Hussain Ali Khan Muhammad, was born in Dongri in the 1930s. And by the way, his father's, we call him Muqaddam, and the reason why he takes on that name Muqaddam, because Muqaddam is a title used to give someone who's in charge of a ship, almost like a captain. So it's called Muqaddam, and his father was a captain of a ship. Firdaus moved to the United States in 1986, first in his family to do so, and gradually brought his elder brother, his older sisters, and his whole family. Again, a constant theme. One who makes that journey, but doesn't forget about his family and establishes them. This is part and parcel of who we are. So these are our panelists. May I ask you all to give them a big salawat, please? So with due to time, I will ask each one of our panelists, and I've given them plenty of time to prepare, 1 question each. Okay? And these questions, when I drafted them, I paid a lot of attention to their background and what will connect so we can learn from them. So Uncle Oni, my dear Uncle Oni, this is the question for you. What is the role of language? What is the role of language in the Khoja community? Is the conversion to English-only programming a strength of the Khoja community? Or do you think is it important for our kids to learn different languages, which is part of our heritage, as in Gujarati, Kutchi, Urdu, and even Swahili, because a lot of us came through East Africa. So once again, Uncle On, what is the role of language in the Khoja community?
So, number 1, a child between the age of 3 and 11 can learn 9 languages. So, if we learn Gujarati at home or Hindi or whatever, and then the second language we learn in the school, which in America is in English or England, and then any other language. But a child, as I said, between age of 3 and 11 can learn 9 languages. And it is so unfortunate that we do not teach them Arabic. We have madrasa, we teach them Arabic just to read it without understanding. In Quran, Allah says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, He repeats 4 times in chapter 54. Allah says, I made the the Quran so easy to understand, will you take time to learn? He repeats 4 times, and unfortunately, we do not even teach our children. We teach them Arabic to read, but not understand what we are reading. So it is very unfortunate that we don't teach them Arabic in a way it should be. And the child between age of 3 and 11 can learn 9 languages. So it is so unfortunate. So here is that we should take care that we should teach our children,
So
besides they know Gujarati and English, we must teach them Arabic, because it is the language of Quran, and then it is the book of the Creator, Allah, who is the author of the book. And it is so unfortunately that we don't even teach our children Arabic. And one day we are going to meet him.
Yes.
And then we
Yes.
will not be able to face him because we don't know what we read in his book.
Message is clear, Uncle Owen. Message is clear. The Creator has communicated with us in that language. It is our responsibility. And one thing, as you heard Nastin Walji also mentioned, right? Credit to our forefathers, because they went and searched for the truth, and they have helped us, guide us, right? So it is our responsibility. If we know Quran is the language of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is the truth, then that's where we go. And thank you, Uncle Oni.
One thing, I am sorry that we, the Khoja community, we are so close and we celebrate so much about Ahl Bayt, but when it comes to Quran, we are so far. This is something which is,
we have to look,
we should adjust it.
Yes. Ahsan, Uncle Owen. Thank you. And Ghulam, Uncle, I'll bring you in at this point, and maybe as a lead-in to your question that I'm going to give you, if you can also touch upon Gujarati and Kutchi and Urdu and Swahili, which is clearly part of our heritage. And even, in fact, I remember sitting with Agha Sistani in my Ziyarat trip, and you know, normally people come in and when they meet with him, they ask him for advice, right? And I said, Sheikh, what would be your advice when we go back to our communities? The first thing he said is preservation of your culture. He didn't mention namaz, he didn't mention our ibadat, no. He said preserve your culture. It is important. And what is part and parcel of our culture? Language. It is part and parcel of our culture. So Uncle Ghulam, I'll ask you to please weigh in on that. The importance of teaching our children Kutchi, Gujarati, Urdu, which is language of our forefathers. Your thoughts, please.
This is an added question. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Asnan, language is the basis of communication. If we want to keep in touch with our land, and when I say our land, I myself am confused. Am I a Tanzanian? Am I an Indian? Am I a Pakistani? Or am I an American? But if you go to our ancestors and if we want to keep in touch with their culture, whether it is English, Kutchi, or Gujarati which they speak, we have to learn these subjects. We have to learn these languages. And as far as immigration, most of it, you would wonder, but it was more Kutchis immigrating to East Africa, and the Gujaratis followed much later, and their numbers were very small. It's a pity that most of the immigrants which landed up in Zanzibar would not, after some time, use Kutchi, but opted out for Kiswahili, which was the trend of the time. And again, speaking of Jangbari Kiswahili is totally different than colloquial, and the version is totally endemic to the Jangbaris. So coming to that, what I said that Kutchi language died eventually in Zanzibar, and Swahili was the norm. Coming to our Khoja heritage, I'm proud to say that our 5 marjas who I have lived through, starting from SIJNY, Gulpaigani, Alkhoi, Tabatabai, all of them have said that Khojas are the apple of their eyes. They loved Khojas because of our discipline. And why was that discipline there? As you must have heard it several times, that we are only 150,000 among the 2 million Shias. So there was this struggle for survival. And when there is struggle for survival, just like Jews, we make a success of it. And that is our basis of what we are. I would like to add my Khoja ancestry and my family. You must have heard about Devji Jamal. My wife, Sabira, is Sabira Abdul Karim Jafar Devji Jamal. I myself, I am Ghulam Abbas Fazal Lada Dinani. Lada Dinani, as you heard from our president, but one point is that he also has been a star in the Khoja hereditary. In fact, there is a book which is called Kutch no Kajio. In that book, Kutch no Kajio, how the Shia Khojas, Shia Ishnashri Khojas, opposed Shia Ismaili Khojas in Kera, in Kutch. It's a short brief, so I would just say that there is a Gulmali Pir mausoleum in Kera, and it was an honor for every Khoja leader to come and raise a flag there. And when the late His Highness Aga Khan III, Sultan Muhammad Shah, tried to raise the flag, the Ishnashris of Kera objected to it, and there was real fist fight and club fights. In there, my grandfather was one of those opposing. They were dragged into British courts at that time in Bhuj, and the decision was in favor of Khoja Shia Ishnashris, and thus that Gulmali Pir today also is in the hands of Khoja Shia Ishnashri. This is just telling you a part history of my family. My daughter Shelina is always after me to write the history, and I am at it, but very slow, inshallah.
So Ghulam Uncle, let me bring you to that main question that I had for you.
Yes.
Right? And by the way, it's a great history.
Right.
Is there, and speaking of Shelina, and I'm sure she struggles with this too, is there such a concept as a Khoja identity? And is the Khoja identity that you have and that your children have, are they the same or are they different?
Shelina calls me the poster boy of Khoja. In fact, As far as I am concerned, I would classify myself as Khoja number 1. But, and my children are following me. My grandchildren are also. But after that, what happens is I had an opportunity to give a right to Ibrahim Jafar's father, marhum Hassan Bhai, and he told me about him writing a book on Khojas, and I just said that, Hassan Bhai, do you know we are an endangered species? He stopped me. He said, can I use that for my title?
Is that right?
Yes, and he has mentioned it in his foreword as well, that this name, this book's name, as the endangered species was proposed by Ghulam Dinani.
Oh wow, mashallah. So what is that identity, Ghulam Uncle? Get to the point. What is that, when you say we are Khojas, what is our identity?
Our identity is, per all those features that we saw today, is very clear, and by repeating it that, I might be inclined to say that I'll be wasting everybody's time, but believe me, that struggle for survival, if we instill it in our children, Khoja heritage will survive.
Ahsan. Thank you, Ghulam Uncle. Thank you very, very much, really. Okay, our next panelist is Arif Jaxi. And by the way, as everybody knows, right, I think I did an injustice to Ghulam Uncle. He has served as president of our community, and he's a mentor of mine, and he's always there for advice. And I cannot thank you enough, because you're always there for me, whether I call you at home or in the center. You're always there, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family for all the services you've given us over the years and continue to do. And he's also served as vice president of the World Federation. Okay, Arif. So Arif, as you all know, not only dedicates time, of course, to his family, to his livelihood, successful businessman, and that's the Jaxi family, but also gives his time to the community. And he needs no introduction on that part. But he's also a sportsman. And he's one of those unique folks in our community here, because when you think about sports, we always are about either soccer, Jaffrey Sports, or volleyball, Union Islanders, or tennis, you know, Long Island Tennis Association with Muntazir. But cricket is there, very much alive, and Arif runs it for the community. So when you think about cricket, it's Arif Jaxi. So Arif is a sportsman, and he's represented our community in multiple Supreme Council tournaments, including Nairobi, which is where the big one is, because Nairobi as a place is big on cricket, and he's gone there and played against them and done very well. So Arif, the question for you is as follows. What is the role of sports? And by the way, you'll notice on the easels, there's a whole, and by the way, there's a big injustice the World Federation has done, because in soccer in 2006, they don't have my name there. The only player out of the West to win in Tanzania, we beat them at the National Stadium, we beat them there, and we brought the cup to USA, and I was the MVP. And I'm gonna, and Makbul Uncle, I know you have connection to the World Federation, and Ghulam Uncle, we're gonna file a complaint. So 2006, that should be Hussein Aziz, MVP of Supreme Council. Anyway, well, that's a small matter. So Arif, what is the role of sports in the Khoja community? How can we involve more youths in sports and make our sports clubs more inclusive?
Hassan, thank you very much. How ironic that Hussein Aziz is asking me a question about sports. When he's been the chairman of Jaffrey Sports, where he's been the coach Aziz that everybody knows. All the kids love him fondly, and we thank him for his services to the community in the sports area, as well as, you know, now the president of our Jamaat. You know, he puts passion in everything that he does, and he was my vice president at that time as well, for half of the term. And everything that he does, he really puts a lot of effort and passion, and God bless him, and God bless you for all that you do for our community. Since well, the word Khoja and sports is really synonymous, because you know, when you hear about Khoja, you think of sports. And when you think of sports, you know, and Khoja just go together. When I remember when I was a kid, I used to go to these Union cricket matches, Union A, to watch, you know, Bashir SIJNY and Muhammad Ali Nattu and all of them play in the grounds against the other communities, the Bohora communities, Ismaili, the Hindu communities, and when you look at a team like Union A, we were proud to be Khoja, because these are the people that really shine, because and we felt like we want to be one of them. I wanted to be the next Bashir SIJNY, maybe, and so these are the kind of people that we try to emulate at the end of the day. And because of the fact that we have sports within our communities, we take these people as role models, and I'm sure people look up to you as well for that role model. Maybe I want to be the next Coach Aziz. Maybe I want to, so that instilling that in our youth, makes for us to have a much more, inshallah, productive and encouraging future for our generations to come. I feel that it's important for us as parents to involve our children at a very young age in sports. And mainly because, I know we come to mosque, we have our religious duties, Islam is a lifestyle. But also when we go out there, when we have our, we mix with other cultures, obviously we have to make sure that there is more than just this center. We have to make sure that we engage on the outside world as well. And the one way to do that is to really engage our youth in the outside activities, playing amongst ourselves as well as, amongst other cultures and communities as well. And being that we involve our children at such a young age, the children see that same kind of people or friends, or make lifelong friends from within the communities as well, just because they see them both in madrasa and outside of madrasa. And because of that, they start to engage, talk more in madrasa, engage more outside, and therefore you build this bond whereby you actually assist the parents in actually making sure that the youth are held within the community, rather than them going out, to other distractions. We are now engaging ourselves within our own communities and kind of helping them out, helping the parents out in turn. So it's important to have that from a young age, because then when you get to an older age, it's hard to associate.
Absolutely.
It's hard to engage. You don't know these friends of yours, etc. So that's what I would put as a take. And as far as the inclusivity, I feel a person like Mustafa Dinani. He's a person that obviously is a Khoja. He's a soccer star, and he's done very well in the Umoja games as well. All that he's done, he's really tried to include the outside communities, beyond this Khojas, and he's done very well for our community as well. So God bless him for all his efforts. But sports is a very important part of our community. So.
Thank you. Parents, I really we think about sports, and we sort of, there are two sets of parents you'll find. The older ones will be like, what's like Suchia. But then you find the newer generation of parents getting more and more involved, right? And there's many young ladies here who help me with the youngsters, right? Coordinate Sherman is right here, right? Others are there, Natasha Khalfan, who's my backbone in Jaffrey Juniors. They do amazing work. And you know why? Arif said something so important. When you think about your kids going to Union to play Friday nights, and when you think of today, 6:45 a.m. on Sunday, 6:45 a.m. on Sunday. I have 22 kids who come and play. 6:45, right after Subuh Namaz, they come and play. And you know who are some of the kids? They're right here. Mahdi Hassan Ali, Maisa Hassan Ali, Aryan Khalfan, his brother Saif Khalfan. Youngsters, our own community kids, 6:45 a.m. playing with the adults. You know why I'm so passionate? Think about the trouble we put them away from. They could be using the time to do other things. Friday night, they could be doing other things. This is when Arif says, Sports is a big thing for us. You know what? It keeps our community together. It's healthy, but it keeps them together. And you know something? Inshallah, in a few weeks, you're going to be getting an invitation of our plans for this center. We're working on our permits and building a gym at the back there. And wait till Mazhar Khalfan comes in and talks to you about what our center will look like. Inshallah, I will not rest until that gym is built for our youngsters, but even for our elderly. I can't wait for our elderly, Uncle On and me, walking on that track together, right? For our elderly, we're going to have professional instructors come, hold yoga classes. Sports is very important for us, big. So thank you, Arif. And you see my passion come out also. Okay. Next question. Uncle Inayat, my mentor, who taught me a lot about serving the Jamaat. Uncle Inayat, here is the question for you, Uncle Inayat. How are the Khoja communities, it's a trick one, how are the Khoja communities inclusive to other cultures, and can we improve upon this even further?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
See, we adopt very fast with the surrounding cultures. When we came to United States from East Africa, for us it was a big cultural shock, but as the kids were born here, they started adopting to the surroundings and the local cultures. Now mixing the two cultures becomes very, very dangerous, and the children get confused. The only way for us to maintain our heritage, the Khoja culture, is for places like these centers, where the Khojas are known to be building centers everywhere in the world, wherever we settle down. And there should be more programs in these centers here targeting the youngsters. Not only Azadaris, not only mothers, but various kind of programs whereby the culture is maintained, and of different ages, women, men, elderly people, and taking advices from our past elders and community leaders. So it is the role of this community Jamaats they have to play in order to maintain the culture of the Khoja community.
Awesome. Thanks, Akinat. And this is so true, right? Because even if you look back, when our forefathers were coming into East Africa, and you look at, for example, Dar es Salaam, where I grew up as well, late in my teen years, you could see the role that we had, whereby within the Jamaat, of course, we kept our heritage, we kept our customs, our organization intact, but we were also very open to people from the African diaspora to come to the community, right? We even helped them found the Bilal Foundation. Look, our responsibility as a community has always been take care of our own, because we are small in numbers, unity in strength, right? Strength is unity. This is when I talk about our identity, that's part of our identity, that's who we are. So that's never going to go away. We will always take care of our own. We have to, otherwise we will become an endangered species, right? But with that, our responsibility, in the words of our Prophet, in the search of the truth that our forefathers did, we have a responsibility to others. We have to take care of them. So when we have in our community people from the Iraqi community coming, people from the Iranian community coming, it's a sense of pride for us. And you know what they tell me when I talk to them? They say, your center is the best because we feel welcomed. Some don't even go to their own, they come here because of the services we provide. And this should continue. It has to continue. This is who we are. But we will never forget our people, our ways. This is our administration is going to be there. Our administration has been touted. You go to Sheikh Father Sahlani. Why do they send, when people pass away, the first preference is given here? Because of the work of Maqbul Ladak, because of the work of SIJNY Darsi, because of their work of Murtaza Ladda, in how we do things the right way. When we take care of our accounts, why is it loaded that our accounts are so perfect that when we show up in the general body and present our accounts, not $1 is missing? Why? That's our heritage. We are people of business from Gujarat. We brought that with us, but that's our trait. That's our identity. That's not going to change, and that's never going to change. But we will always be a welcoming community because we have to be. That's Islam, right? Okay. So I also thought about Firdaus because I said, you know, the 4 panelists here came through East Africa, made their way to the United States. But Firdaus did not come through East Africa. So I said I wanted to get his perspective because he's here, he's come from India. Of course, he married my cousin. But I wanted to know specifically from him. So Firdaus, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Uncle Inayat, because that whole question about inclusivity, we may think we are inclusive, but you also have a different perspective. So if you can talk to me about the Khoja community in India and inclusivity in India, and then compare that to what you're seeing here. It's a difficult question. It could be a sensitive question, but we have to know that. So Firdaus, over to you.
Well, I think we're running short of time, so I'll be very, very brief. It's a very subjective question, and we can be here for an hour, discussing this. But I'll be very brief about it. In India, there is not that much of awareness as Khojas. Okay, it's a granted thing given over there that we are all Khojas, and we have our mosque, and as we move further inland because of space and stuff, we build our centers over there too, just like how we are building centers here. And the thing has never come up where to say that are we in endangered species or something. That has never come up over there. But I guess when we come to, when you guys have gone to Africa, it's a totally different land. So we were born there, we brought up over there. So that the thing has never been that are we still, are we going to maintain a Khoja culture? We have issues. The same thing that we have here is that our kids are also marrying outside. Okay, getting into Sayyid families and stuff. And coming to the point, of being inclusive, yes, the Khoja Mosque in India is inclusive of a lot of other communities also. And we have set up an example as we are setting up here that we are very strong in organization, and that's what we bring forward to the Khoja community and in the Muslim community in general in Bombay. Okay, and we build qabristans and stuff over there. Yes, we don't have enough in education-wise, okay, but we are very inclusive. And my thing to going forward, that now we are in America, and we have our strong points as Khojas, then we should use this and bring forward, more benefits to other communities. Because we build centers, we should open our centers for others to come and have like marriages and stuff, okay? And, be there for the whole community, because not everybody has the capacity to build centers as we do, as Khojas do, okay? So this is my point, is that be more open to other communities outside and let them benefit from what we are good at, okay? So, I mean, look at this center. There's such a beautiful center in Long Island. Nobody has this center like this. So let us make use of this center to benefit everybody, okay? We maintain our culture, we maintain everything, but let us use the center and open it up to benefit everybody.
Jazakallah. Can I have a big salawat for that? Allahumma salli ala. And I will just leave you with this. Today, we have 120 to 30 students today in madrasa. Do you want to know what is the number of students on the waiting list to get into our madrasa? You want to guess? It's almost 100. We have 100 other students. We cannot take them in because we have our own constraints. And these are kids from other communities. But it is such a pride for me when I say that our madrasa caters not only to ours but to others. This is, believe it or not, when Firdaus says, look at our beautiful center, don't for 1 second think that it is not the ni'mah of the people who do that work, who serve the broader community, that brings us the blessings that we have. This is the benefit with. But yes, administration is important. This is what we are known for. This is why we are the administrators. But to what he said, benefit, we have to look at how we can benefit the broader community. That's ni'mah in there. So with that, I would like you all to give our panelists a big, big salawat. Allahumma salli ala.